Hi, I am Lindsay Tjepkema, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Casted, and I am so excited to be here with you all today at Uppercase 2020. A little bit of background about myself. I have been in marketing for more than 15 years. More specifically, I've been a brand and content marketer. I've sat on the agency side and on the corporate side, but my love for podcasts and specifically authentic conversations is what led me to found Casted. So, what is Casted? Casted is the first and only marketing platform built around branded podcasts. Our software empowers showrunners to unlock the full potential of each episode so marketers can manage, activate, and measure their podcasts from beginning to end, all while engaging their audience, increasing sales alignment with marketing, quantifying podcast value with metrics that matter for their brand. So now that you know a little bit about my background and about Casted, let's jump into what you're really here for to talk about today. So, to get things started, how many of you listen to podcasts? Well, congratulations, because as of 2018, if you do listen to podcasts, you are in the majority, because for the first time ever, we surpassed a milestone, and that is that more Americans are now listening to podcasts than those who are not. And remember, this data is from 2018, so those numbers have just increased. More than 144 million people were listening to podcasts, and more than 22% of those were listening at least weekly. That number more than tripled from 2013 to 2018. And fun fact, of the Americans who listen weekly, they average 7 podcasts every week. So again, podcasting is here. Listenership is booming. And no doubt you've heard of podcasts like Seeking Wisdom, Flip My Funnel, Scale or Die. Drift, Terminus, and Proof have all done an amazing job of diving into podcasting and creating wildly successful shows. Some shows are so successful, you might not have realized the brand behind the show. But why are these brands so successful in their efforts? Well, because they're taking the B2B out of B2B marketing. Instead of focusing on business to business, they're focusing on human to human interactions. People don't want to talk to businesses, they want to talk to humans. Same goes for what they listen to. These brands realize that the people are making very distinct choices to listen to their podcast instead of music or a true crime podcast, because doesn't it seem like Americans really, really love a good murder podcast? Or really, they could be listening to nothing at all. So the content needs to be amazing. It doesn't just need to be amazing, it needs to be authentic. As consumers, we love authenticity. Brands who are authentic or real with us fare far better in our books than brands who are rigid, cold, or inhuman. These brands are killing it in the podcast game because they are turning authentic conversations into podcasts. So what does that look like? And how can you learn from what these brands are doing and turn the authentic conversations you're having on your podcast at the center of your marketing strategy? Let's start with best practices. How do you take your podcast and position it at the center of your strategy, making sure it's fueling your strategy? First things first, put your audience first. When thinking about a podcast or how a podcast influences your marketing strategy, start by putting yourself in your audience's shoes. What expertise or perspective do you have that would really sell your audience on what you're doing? Too often, when creating content specifically, marketers focus too much on what we want to say, not what our audience wants to hear. Branded podcasts are only successful when they flip this thought around and put their audience's needs and wants before their own. So think of podcast powerhouse Drift. They turned one successful podcast into 5. Yep, they have 5. In fact, they actually have more than that, but they have 5 live shows going right now. They turned out that one show into 5 successful podcasts by looking at their audience and creating shows that directly reflect the topics that their growing audience wanted. They realized that they had an ever-increasing audience that was interested in more than just marketing, so they grew their show base to reflect that. And here's what Molly Sloan, who is the magic behind the scenes of Drift's network of podcasts, here's what she had to say about putting your audience first.
You know, there's nothing like a podcast to really form a connection with someone you've never met. It's such an intimate channel because you're with someone during all the moments of their day. They could be just getting up in the morning and commuting to work. They could be doing dishes after dinner, that type of thing. And so I think David recognized that and, wanted to be a part of it. And as we grew our following with Seeking Wisdom, we saw a need for, more shows. And so we decided, why not just, why only have one show when there's a lot of different people that we can speak to, and we have so many different talented people here at Drift who are really passionate and really smart, and have a lot to share with their respective audiences.
And up next, we're looking at identifying the right guests. So if you're thinking about your audience and putting them first, then you also have to think about what guests serve your audience best. Too often, podcasters get so focused on having everyone under the sun on their podcast that they lose sight of what they're trying to accomplish. It's important to invite guests on your show who serve a real purpose for your audience. At Casted, we have focused on guests who speak to our audience about running a podcast. As a podcasting company, it's important for our audience to get tips, tricks, mentorship from podcasters who have been there and done that and found both failures and successes. But what does that mean for you and for your podcast? Next up, have real conversations. Calling back to authenticity, listeners want to sit in on real conversations, not overly edited or prepared Q&As that they've heard 100 times before. Just start talking. The more you talk and get perspective from each guest, the more valuable content and themes will start to emerge. So when you think about podcasts like Flip My Funnel, you hear real people talking about real issues that they personally have faced. It's not focused specifically on ABM strategies or on Terminus in particular. It's leaders talking about how they have found success. It's a marketer and a salesperson talking about issues they've faced working together. Sangram Ver decided to start his podcast after he'd been having lunch with a different person each day and realized that there was an opportunity to share the amazing conversations and insights that he was getting from these conversations. And given the success of the Flip My Funnel podcast, it's clear that authenticity really is a winner in the podcast space. And here is Sangram himself speaking about just that.
Yeah, and it was all started with I felt I'm having these incredibly amazing conversations with people internally in the office, with customers, with future customers, with influencers, with absolutely so much amazing stuff that I'm like, why am I not just recording this thing? This is amazing. This is good stuff. And we just kind of started with it. I remember the first 50 or 80 episodes was just me interviewing half of my company and putting it on the podcast saying, all right, you just went from SDR to AE. What did that take for you to do? What skills do you need to be that? You just moved from marketing to sales. How is that even possible? Why did you choose that? And what's interesting about just podcast in general is that because you're having a conversation with other person, you're not scripted. You're not trying to be something else. You're just talking just over a coffee. And if you can be natural enough to ask good questions and make it conversational, you'll be surprised what you get out of it. So.
Great advice from Sangram himself. All right, so up next is identifying the trending themes. So we just talked about some of the best practices that will undoubtedly make your show better, but they will also help you with this next part. Identifying trending themes in your podcast. What better way to create content for your brand than by tapping into conversations that you're having with your guest, who your audience already loves, right? Around the topics that your audience wants to hear. So say your show is about creating a better podcast, and you're interviewing different types of guests, and you start to notice some trends. Every guest talking about setting a certain goal or measuring each show a certain way. Identifying these trends can start to help you map out a more strategic content marketing strategy that really flows for your listeners. These authentic conversations can help you map out content for the coming months that aligns better with your audience and in turn can build better trust with them. All right. So now that we've covered some of the best practices, let's talk about how to really wring out your podcast content to maximize the value of each and every episode across multiple channels, which is so important. So once an episode is live, too often, brands will share a few social messages and send out an email and move on to the next week and the next episode. But with all of that hard work that goes into each and every episode, marketers should really be able to do more with their shows. So activation shouldn't just be about promoting the show, but a way to also take your podcast and infiltrate its content into everything you're doing, from marketing to sales and even to client success. So how can you get the most out of each and every episode? Well, using transcripts to create content packages around your podcast is one really great way to do it. Transcribing podcasts probably isn't a new concept to you, but many brands transcribe each episode so they can easily create show notes. But that shouldn't be the only thing you're using your transcriptions for. Transcripts offer an amazing way to create more content that can be used across other marketing channels. So let's talk about what you can do with a transcription. Adding a written aspect to your podcast allows you to create more content around each episode, but also turn episodes into searchable content. Searchable content allows new to you listeners, those who are coming to you for the first time, find information through Google and other search engines. You can also create several smaller pieces that highlight different aspects of each and every episode to appeal to different audiences. This is a great way to enable different departments to promote the podcast. For example, at Casted, we use transcripts to identify topics from different episodes that align to create new podcast episodes and different pieces of content around podcast strategy, management, activation, and measurements called PodClass. Yes, PodClass. Doing this allowed us to create content to be used across several marketing channels for our customers and for our sales team. All right, so let's talk now about identifying and sharing key takeaways for each of your podcasts. The idea of key takeaways may not be new. A lot of brands identify bullet-like points to use in their show notes, as they're a really great option for highlighting some of the best moments from your episodes that you really want to stand out to your listeners. What I would challenge you to do differently, though, is to create playable takeaways that you can embed on your show page. Why? Well, because it gives you an opportunity to direct listeners to the topics and the parts of the conversation that you think will be the most valuable parts for them. Here you can see how Matt Bellotti from Drift is creating key takeaways for his show Growth. All right, so here are some key takeaways about key takeaways. 1, highlight important moments from the episode. 2, give listeners a way to jump around in the episode. 3, give listeners a better idea of what to expect in each episode. And 4, have clips to share on social, in emails, and with internal team members. All right, clips. Create clips for each of your podcasts for better targeted marketing. Much like key takeaways, clips allow you to highlight and share the best moments from your episodes. What makes clips different? Well, when we think about key takeaways, we're thinking about the outline of the podcast. Clips can come from any part of the podcast and can, and really should, be created with a specific audience in mind, kind of like the ABM for podcasting. So you can see here that Casted has created clips to use for this episode. So some clips on clips. Execute ABM by creating clips specific to certain audiences. And share different parts of the episode on social, in emails, and on other marketing channels. All right, let's talk about embedding your show. Pepper your content with key takeaways and clips. So given that you'll likely be creating a strategy that aligns with the conversations you're having on your podcast, why not integrate these conversations directly into your content, even outside of your podcast? So using the quotes and clips from your podcast episodes, create multifaceted content by layering them into your content. So you can see here an example of how a clip is embedded into a blog post, or a key takeaway you could use within some of your other content. Try embedding things into your web pages or your emails to really pull your different listening and reading experiences all together into one place. All right, so how and why owning your audience is so important. See, it's all about bringing your listeners to your site and really owning that experience they have with your brand. So when it comes to podcasting, we've gone about it all wrong, or at least completely backwards from any other marketing channel. You see, think about when all of us started blogging. We would create a blog on our own domain, And then over time, we started to say, hey, maybe we could get more traction from this by syndicating it elsewhere or guest posting. But with podcasts, we did that backwards. We started with syndicating first. That's where the technology was, right? But by that means, we don't own any of the data. If you're publishing only to the Apples, the Spotifys, and the Googles of the world, you don't own your audience. Even though it's an audience that might listen to our podcast every single week or every day, we don't know who those people are or how they're consuming our show and what, if any, action they're taking from there. We lose control of all of that information. And for many brands, this is causing a lot of disconnect, not only in their marketing strategies and funnels, but also in their reporting. How can you prove out value for something that you don't own, or even look for opportunities to improve it? Something that you send out into the world and cross your fingers that people will click through in the show notes, how is that working for you? So let's change that. Let's talk about how you can take control of your audience and the experience they're having with your brand. Start by maximizing exposure by hosting on your site. Housing your podcast on your own site, in addition to the typical channels, means an opportunity to get new ears on your content and new eyes on your brand. Yes, of course, Apple and Spotify and Google are all excellent, low barrier, free entry points for potential customers and fans, but they definitely shouldn't be the only places people can find and hear your content. So it's not a matter of either or, it's also and. Do both. And as you repurpose your podcast into other content formats, which we discussed earlier, through blogs, transcripts, comprehensive show notes, you not only serve up a richer experience, but you boost the chances that people will find you organically through SEO. So in addition, you also have the opportunity to encourage meaningful shares on your own site, and you can make one-click shares enticing and easy with shareable quotes, audio snippets, graphics, and more. Let's also talk about controlling the user experience. So, like with social media, the podcasting world feels unstable and unpredictable. You wouldn't be wise to put all your eggs in the mainstream player basket. For example, Apple has altered what they consider new and noteworthy in podcasts many times over the past year, and other players tend to follow suit when Apple changes things up. Understanding how to game, so to speak, game the system and ensure visibility for your podcast is impossible and pretty unwise. So when someone finds your podcast through a third-party platform, you have little to no control over how you're represented there, or even if you're represented at all. Sure, you can pop in a logo and add some messaging, but the way you show up there is otherwise out of your hands. Giving your podcast a home on your own site means way more control for you, and you can enrich and guide the user experience while incorporating strategy and staying on brand, and also ensuring that the person's experience isn't limited to simply your podcast, but also means interaction and engagement with the rest of your content and a broader aspect of your brand. So getting the analytics that you deserve. I bet I got a lot of attention for this one because that's something that we hear so often from the marketers that we talk to, and that's lack of valuable metrics is one of the biggest pain points with podcasting for marketers. When you send people to your own site to listen, suddenly a whole new world of analytics opens up that isn't available to you if you are focusing solely on those big players like Apple, Google, and Spotify. When you own the experience and you host the majority, you send people to your own website, your owned real estate to listen to your show, you can go way beyond just number of downloads and start tracking all sorts of goodness, like how are users interacting with your content? Where else on your site are they going? How long are they sticking around? And where are listeners coming from? Are they sharing it? How? Basically, how are they consuming your content and how are they interacting with your company and your brand on a broader level? All right, so let's talk about why we're really doing all of this. It's all about relationships, right? The best businesses are built on relationships, after all. That's part of the magic of podcasts. Listeners feel like they've pulled up a chair and that they're listening in on an intimate conversation. No other content can do that. This is why it's time to put out a fresh welcome mat and invite people to interact with you on your home turf. Housing your podcast on your own website provides a more personable, inviting experience with more opportunities for conversation and relationship building. The best podcasts leave listeners hungry for more time with the hosts and with the guests. So if your listeners are listening to your podcast on your site, you can serve them up with all kinds of extra goodness, like bonus materials and photos and cheat sheets and backstories that they can access as supplemental content related to your podcast, related episodes from your archive, relevant resources like white papers, blogs, or online courses, opportunities for interaction, bios and deeper information about the hosts and the guests, invitations to upcoming events, and details about services or offerings that are related to the content that you talked about on your show. Plus, your site is a great place for capturing emails to continue that relationship building down the road. When someone bounces off to Apple or Spotify or Google, you have no way of knowing who they are or how to stay in touch. So if you're interested in learning more about how you can put your podcast at the center of your marketing strategy, get more out of each and every episode, and take control over your audience, Casted is helping major brands like Drift, Pendo, Logicate, Terminus, and so many more make this dream a reality. And we would love to talk about how we can help you and your brand do the same. So visit us at casted.us, look for Podcat, he's our fun little chatbot, and mention uppercase 2020 for some extra special treatment there. Thanks so much.